I thought this was the grand finale, but no. June switched over to the piano and banged out a jazzed up version of Go Tell It on the Mountain. That's when August started a conga line. She danced over to Lunel, who latched onto August's waist. Cressy hooked onto Lunel, followed by Mabley, and off they went around the room, causing Cressy to grab hold of her crimson hat. When they swung back by, Queenie and Violet joined them, then Sugar Girl. I wanted to be a part of it too, but I only watched, and so did Rosaline and Otis. June seemed to play faster and faster. I fanned my face, trying to get a little air, feeling lightheaded. When the dance ended, the daughters stood panting in a half circle before Our Lady of Chains, and what they did next took my breath away. One at a time they went and touched the statue's fading red heart. Queenie and her daughter went together and rubbed their palms against the wood. Lunel pressed her fingers to Mary's heart, then kissed each one of them in a slow, deliberate way, a way that brought tears to my eyes. Otis pressed his forehead to the heart, standing there the longest time of them all, head to heart, like he was filled up in his empty tank. June kept playing while each of them came until there was only Rosaline and me left. May nodded to June, who kept on with the music, and took Rosaline's hand, pulling her to Our Lady of Chains, so even Rosaline got to touch Mary's heart. I wanted to touch her vanishing red heart too, as much as anything I'd ever wanted. As I rose from my chair, my head was still swimming some. I walked toward Black Mary with my hand lifted, but just as I was about to reach her, June stopped playing. She stopped right in the middle of the song, and I was left in the silence with my hand stretched out. Drawing it back, I looked around me, and it was like seeing everything through a train's thick window. A blur passed before me, a moving wave of color. I am not one of you, I thought. My body felt numb. I thought how nice it would be to grow smaller and smaller until I was a dot of nothing. I heard August scolding, "June, what's got into you?" but her voice was so distant. I called to the Lady of Chains, but maybe I wasn't really saying her name out loud, only hearing myself call on the inside. That's the last I remember, her name echoing through the empty spaces. When I woke, I was lying on August's bed across the hall with an ice-cold washcloth folded over my forehead, and August and Rosaline staring down at me. Rosaline had pulled up the skirt of her dress and was fanning me with it, showing most of her thighs. "Since when have you started fainting?" she said, and sat down on the edge of the bed, causing me to roll into her side. She scooped me into her arms. For some reason, this caused my chest to fill with more sadness than I could bear, and I wrestled myself free, claiming I needed a drink of water. "Maybe it was the heat," August said. "I should have turned on the fans. It must have been 90 degrees in there." "I'm all right," I told them, but to tell the truth, I was bewildered at myself. I felt I'd stumbled upon an amazing secret. It was possible to close your eyes and exit life without actually dying. You just had to faint. Only I didn't know how to make it happen, how to pull the plug so I could drain away when I needed to. My fainting spell had broken up the Daughters of Mary and sent May to the Wailing Wall. June had gone upstairs to her room and locked the door, while the daughters huddled in the kitchen. We chalked it up to heat. Heat, we said. Heat would make a person do strange things. You should have seen August and Rosaline how they fussed over me the rest of the evening. "You want some root beer, Lily? How about a feather pillow? Here, swallow this spoon of honey." We sat in the den, where I ate supper off a tray, which was a privilege in itself. June was still in her room, not answering August's calls at the door, and May, who wasn't allowed near the TV because she'd already spent too much time today at the wall, was in the kitchen clipping recipes from McCall's magazine. On the television, Mr. Cronkite said they were going to send a rocket ship to the moon. On July 28th, the United States of America will launch Ranger 7 from Cape Kennedy, Florida, he said. It was going to take 253,665-mile flight before it crash-landed onto the moon. The whole point was to take pictures of the surface and send them back. "Well, baby Jesus," said Rosaline, "a rocket to the moon." August shook her head. "Next they'll be walking around up there." We had all thought President Kennedy was off his rocker when he declared he would land a man on the moon. The Sylvan newspaper had called it a lunatic vision. I took the article to class for the current events bulletin board. We all said, "A man on the moon." Right. But you can never underestimate the power of cutthroat competition. We wanted to beat the Russians. That was what made the world go around for us. Now it looked like we would. August cut off the TV set. "I need some air." We all went, Rosalind and August holding on to my elbows in case I started to keel over again. It was the in-between time, before day leaves and night comes, a time I'd never been partial to because of the sadness that lingers in the space between going and coming. August gazed at the sky where the moon was rising large and ghostly silver. "Look at her good, Lily," she said, "'cause you're seeing the end of something." "I am?" "Yes, you are, because as long as people have been on this earth, the moon has been a mystery to us. Think about it. She is strong enough to pull the oceans, and when she dies away, she always comes back again. My mama used to tell me Our Lady lived on the moon, and that I should dance when her face was bright and hibernate when it was dark." August stared at the sky a long moment, and then turning toward the house said, "Now it won't ever be the same. Not after they've landed up there and walked around on her. She'll be just one more big science project." I thought about the dream I had that night Rosalind and I slept on the pond, how the moon had cracked to pieces. August disappeared into the house and Rosalind headed for her cot in the honey house, but I stayed on and stared at the sky, imagining Ranger 7 blasting away for it. I knew one day I would go back into the parlor when no one was around and touch the lady's heart. Then I would show August the picture of my mother and see if the moon broke loose and fell out of the sky.